Yeah, good.
Okay. Because conversations, just being able to have the skill of having a good conversation with somebody is a skill that not everybody has. And so it's
No.
possible by them being able to observe, two people in a natural conversation behind closed doors,
Yeah.
that might be something that might spark something in them to be able to learn how to better communicate with other people.
I think that's an awesome idea. Yeah.
Cool. So we're doing it. So we're going to record and let's just have our
Yeah,
conversation.
sure. That's really good. Yeah. Well, look, you reached out to me and said that you would like to learn something that I was doing, or, what
Yeah,
was that?
just to hear what you're up to. I know this, I think I
Oh,
met
okay.
you about a year ago on the
Yeah.
GSD video challenge,
Mm.
and you just like really took to it just like that, which was amazing. And I want to know what you've been doing since then.
Right. Okay. Well, since the challenge, I've basically retired. I moved from Hamilton up to what we call the Bay of Islands, and live with my son and daughter-in-law.
Hmm.
And what I've been doing is just interacting with the local business community and working with infrastructure companies and doing assessing and training
Hmm.
for them, but also working and networking with high-level influencers. I've got a coach, and her name is Janet Clark. I don't know whether you've heard of Janet Clark.
Hmm.
And her clients that she serves is Ryan Levesque and Alex Mandozian, and just getting into that network. The reason for that is that about 9 years ago, I decided to become an adult educator, and one of the things that happened to me 6 months into the job is that I discovered that I had to recruit students, to maintain the viability of my campus.
Hmm.
And I just didn't know how to sell. I had absolutely no idea.
Hello, I'm here.
And well, what I discovered is that I had to figure it out on my own, and I went through a lot of like standing in the fire, and I had to make a choice: either learn how to sell or learn how to help prospective students buy into the program.
Which is the same
And
thing.
it is the same thing, but it's like heads and tails on a coin.
Okay.
Yeah, it is totally opposite, because it's called buying facilitation.
Buying
And
facilitation.
buying facilitation, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to assume that means making it easy for the person to buy.
Correct. So
Okay.
when you learn how to sell, it's very eye-centric. It's all about, you're out to make a sale. With buying facilitation, it's very we-centric. So you collaborate and get on the same side as your prospective client and help them make a buying decision.
Mm.
And what that happens is it detaches you from the sale and allows you, and there's no pressure or anxiety, within. So all that's left is a relaxed conversation. So the sooner that you can build that level of trust or collaboration, the sooner, you get on their side, and it just becomes a conversation like we're having now.
What's
So
interesting by saying that is what immediately comes to mind is TV commercials, and how sometimes within 30 seconds you can actually get people to know, like, and trust you, based on
yeah,
the languaging you use or the visuals that are in the commercial and the pain that you point to and how you can solve it. But you can
yeah,
do it quickly. And like you just mentioned, you said the sooner we can get to that we point,
yeah.
then that's what makes it the purchasing facilitation much easier and quicker and painless.
That's right. Now, where the pain comes from is there's a thing called conversational intelligence. There's a lady called Judith Glazier, and she's been working on this for about 30 years, And you know the brainware technology nowadays, the EEG stuff, you know, they can map the brain and everything else.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've gone through your year of fears, you know,
Yep.
very familiar with what fear feels like. And where the fear comes from is in the back of the brain, or what's called the amygdala. Have you heard of that before?
Yeah, the fight or flight, the monkey brain, or whatever, the lizard brain, and they have so many different names for it, but yeah.
Yeah. So that's the transition you have to make. So when I discovered that I had to go and sell, going in with the mindset of selling, you know, was very fearful, and I had a lot of anxiety. So my primary focus and intent was to alter the chemical composition in the brain from a cortisol adrenaline mix to an oxytocin adrenaline mix. And so it transferred the chemicals from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex.
And you have a process that you go through to do that? Okay.
Yeah. So it's all about language and tone and buying facilitation, you know, using. So to give you a practical example, say you're in a retail shop and you went shopping and the person comes up to you and says, can I help you? And what's your normal reaction when someone says that to you? Do you say something like,
it depends.
Yeah, correct. I'm just looking.
Oh, it depends on what I went. Like for me, it's always intention, right? What did I go in there? Because I'm not really a shopper. Like I know a lot of women are shoppers. I'm not into that at all. So when I go shopping, I say, I'm looking for a blue blouse, you know? So I already know what I want. So when they say, can I help you? I say, I'm looking for a blue blouse. Okay. You know, and they're like, oh, we don't have any blue blouses. Okay, thanks. I'm gonna go to the next store. You're like, I'm done. So I'm not your typical. I'm not a shopper. I'm just not into it. But yes, if I happen to walk into a store, which doesn't happen often, I'm like, oh no, thanks. I'm just looking. Exactly.
Yeah. So what you've actually come up with is some resistance, and you've given an objection. Okay.
Immediately. Yeah. It's an immediate stay away from me.
Correct.
I'm not ready yet.
and when we are enrolling people into, say, a high ticket program or whatever, that's what you have to deal with in the first, you know, microseconds. So if you can come up with a way, you know, a languaging tone, you know, what your intent is to facilitate that and just get that to the other side as quickly as you can, well, then you're away. So say, for example, I was the retailer, and I said to the prospective customer, you know, oh, you're wearing a really nice blouse. How did you decide to buy that? You know, and so rather than resistance, you've opened up the possibility for you to explain how you actually decided to buy. And if you can discover how that person decided to buy a blouse, you know, that opens up the pathway to facilitate and help you decide to buy, you know, whatever's in the shop.
Okay, so let's go back to that scenario. So you asked me the question, how did you decide to buy, now let's say the blue blouse, because that's what we were talking about.
Right.
How did you decide to buy that blouse? Well, first of all, I'm going to be like, oh, he or she is interested in me, in my blouse. They like my blouse. I picked this blouse. That means they think I have good taste or whatever is going through my head. And then the next thought, and, you know, I'm just like imagining that I'm in that situation. So then my next thought is, how did I choose this blouse? And then I'm going to come up with to let them know, like, well, I was shopping at such and such store and I was looking for a blue blouse because blue's my favorite color. So I'm going to go into a story, right, about how I chose that blue blouse. And so by going into my story, now they're getting to hear about my emotion, like my emotion is in there. Am I excited about it? Did I enjoy my shopping experience? There's so many, I mean, I'm just hearing you speak. This is what I'm getting out of this.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So like all these different experiences that one salesperson can now learn from me about how I buy.
Correct.
Right.
You're so onto it.
I'm good.
You are very, very good. You're so insightful. It's fantastic.
Well, you know, it's interesting you say that because I've been, since I was a kid, I wanted to be a child
Yeah.
psychologist. You know, I'm not a
Right.
child psychologist, but I always wanted to be a child psychologist. And I realized at the age of, I think it was about age 11, I started looking at myself. So always like being very introspective about learning about who I am, even though it took me till I was 51 to really get on that journey, you know, but
Right.
because something happened to me along the way, you know, that stuffed it all down. But I really try to look at the situation, and like as you're speaking, I'm actually imagining a scenario in my head. And I think that's what makes me, like you said, insightful, you know, because I'm actually picturing what you're talking about. So that's how my brain thinks.
Yeah.
My
And
amygdala.
and I think what you said, you know, a picture in your mind, you know, how we communicate and how we perceive the world through our five senses is creating a movie in our mind. You know, so that's how we do it. You know, so it's very insightful. But it gets back to, you know, how am I going to run a successful business and enroll people into my school, you know, and whenever I am in a social situation and just talking to people, you know, you just have to ask facilitated questions and allow them to talk. And I think, it's a really good way to go. Rather than learning how to sell, learn how to, you know, help people buy. So
well, let me ask you this question. Have you heard of NLP?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Yeah. So would you say that this is some form of that, or no, not at all?
It is, but NLP is very eye-centric again, you know, so I'm not sure. I don't know. I haven't even delved into NLP. But NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, you know, you're using a language to, well, it could be, you know, it could be a mix of everything. And that's what I've discovered, that I've had to use a mix of everything, you know. I've had to study like Robert Cialdini, you know, the psychology of persuasion, you know, things like that. I came across Ryan Levesque quite early on when I was starting to teach. And he uses what's called the ASK method, and which is about micro commitments and helping people to go through what's called impossible to fail commitments, you know, through a process. So you don't activate the, you know, the chemicals, the amygdala again in the brain. And if you can go through the conversation and just help people go through those commitments and achieve, you know, that transformational process, because you know yourself, you've gone through probably several transformations, you know, over the past 2 years. And every level is scary. You know, you think, okay, I've got to this plateau and then I have to get to the next. But then you hesitate and think, I'm comfortable where I am. Do I really want to go to the next level? And so you have to go to your coach and talk about it and say, okay, you know, here I am now, you know, help me through this, help me, you know, just talk to me and help me through it. So.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because going through the year of fears, you know, that was 2015. So by me going through that, I recognized my fears quickly. And I can just say, oh, it's just a fear. And then I just move on. So for me, I don't need to go talk to other people anymore, because it's become, like you said, it might have something to do with me moving that here quickly. And I didn't even know I was doing that. So that's really cool.
Yes, but you've mastered the skill, and you find that, particularly with my students, they were very fearful because they had to borrow the money, you know, to get onto the course. They invariably had no money, so they had to get a student loan. And for them, you know, to borrow $7,000 was huge, you know, for them, because they're, you know, on low level incomes and that sort of thing. And you had to instill enough belief in them, you know, for them to believe enough in themselves to actually, you know, take that leap. And And then again, it becomes your responsibility to help them achieve that outcome as well, you know. So
right.
that's very important. You can't just take their money and say, well, you know, there you go, there it is.
Yeah.
You've
Not with
got to
good
help
conscience,
them.
not with good, yeah.
No. But some of the things about communication is, you know, what I've watched you over the last year or two,
Mm-hmm.
and what I probably call golden buzzer moments. Have you ever watched on YouTube on America's Got Talent, and you know, they go on stage, and people who do really well, the audience demand that they, you know, the judges press the golden buzzer and they go straight through to Las Vegas or whatever.
Yeah.
And, you know, when someone gets onto a stage and they can communicate with 3,000 people and just over 90 seconds make such an impact that 3,000 people demand that they go through, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just what we say, but it's what is it that's actually impacted, you know, that audience in 90 seconds. You know, what is it? You know, so that's what we call a golden buzzer moment. And when I watch you, I look at you and I think, oh, you know, you've got the likes of Les Brown, you've got the likes of Steve Sims, you know, golden buzzer moments. You know,
Oh my God.
what have you done to impact, you know, to make that kind of impact? Can you imagine? Can you think of what you've done?
Well, first, I didn't know I made that kind of an impact. So thank you so much. I'm beside myself hearing that. I would say just connecting and being authentic. I mean,
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just me.
Yeah. Have you heard of Scott Alford?
Mm-mm.
No. Okay. He's a guy that came back from being almost $1 million in debt, and you know, and then he transformed his business, you know, very, very quickly. And he's got what's called a relevancy engine, you know. So there's three parts to his business. It's called being relevant, being omnipresent, and being intimate. And so it's being in front of his audience all the time, but being just like you, being authentic, you know, open and honest about who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And he closed down a multi-million-dollar business because he felt that it wasn't billing right. So he shut down his whole business because he felt that he was just in it for the money rather than actually helping people.
I love that.
Yeah. And yeah, it's totally changed his business. And what happened is that he had a smaller audience, but he actually made more money. Yeah. And yeah, so I think he may have been watching you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Because when you think, you know, the kind of impact that people like you and Scott and Les Brown and Steve Sims have, you know, they all come from a place of virtue, authenticity, and they make an impact on the world. But when you think the message that you're putting out into the world, it's just like that person on stage who communicates with 3,000 people in 90 seconds, but you're actually, through your daily videos, you're having more of an impact than you actually realize. Do you understand that?
Yeah, yeah, this is, for some reason it's hitting something for me, you know, because emotionally, first of all, to be mentioned in the same names as those gentlemen you just mentioned, and that is just thank you so much. And the reason this is hitting me hard is because, you know, I grew up in a very abusive household, and we were better seen than heard. And that was what I always heard. And my ex-husband told me how stupid I was. And So for me to be able to verbally say things that make an impact is bigger than you can imagine. So thank you so much.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. But, you know, there is a reason why those people are in your world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's why. Yeah. And this is the kind of the way that we have to communicate with our clients, you know, and our prospects. And if you can come across with an intent and purpose that is bigger than ourselves, and deliver that mental movie into the future and that transformation, it just works so well. Yeah. And that's what I did with my students. And yeah, and the feedback from my students has been, you know, we always have every quarter we had a feedback form, you know, and it's great. And that's the reward you get, you know. You watch the journey, you know, and every day is you give them tasks that just stretch them a little bit, and you just take them, you know, day by day by day. I used to teach them how to operate excavators, you know, and loaders and all that sort of thing.
I loved your videos that you did here on. I was like, what the heck? I want to ride one of those. Are you in New Zealand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. You're a Kiwi. So you're
Yeah.
always like, oh man, if I'm ever there, maybe I can ride one of those. That looks so much fun.
Well, it is a lot of fun. We every year we have what we call excavator competitions.
Okay.
And we have regional competitions, and the regional excavator competition winner goes into a national competition. And in Auckland, we have what we call a 4-day event called Big Boys Toys, you know, where we have adrenaline pumping, you know, fast cars and, you know, big trucks and all that sort of thing. And one of my responsibilities is to give people, the general public, right from little kids to big adults, the opportunity to get onto an excavator and operate it. So what we do is we get a tub of sand, and we put 4 golf balls in it, and then we put a spoon on the bucket, and we get them to pick the golf balls out of the sand, and they have to place the golf balls into a plastic cup on a table.
Oh my God.
And it takes, you know, it's very intense concentration. But when they achieve just one golf ball, you know, they just throw their hands in the air with, you know, a sense of achievement. It's just so much fun. And,
it's funny that you think about that, really, because you know, the human psyche, right? We you know, celebrating something like that, because if you think about it, it's kind of a weird thing. But we're celebrating because the celebration is in the success of, like, I worked really hard. Like, I concentrated so hard to get that, and I did it. Yes. Right.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. Like, the point is that, like you were mentioning, your students, you know, they have to achieve one thing and then the next and then the next.
Yeah.
And so it is about making small strides forward, you know, on a daily basis. And my whole goal is that today I make myself better than I was yesterday. And so every day it's about making myself a better human being, that I'm here on earth every single day. My goal is to be better than I was yesterday. That's it. That's my goal.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So it just keeps, you know, making me better and better and better and better. And it's not about me being the best or me being better. It's about me being a better person on this planet, so that I can hopefully positively impact more lives. I have a huge goal of how many lives I would love to be able to impact, or that I will impact, I should say.
Yeah.
And I got to get started, you know?
Yeah. There is a story, you know, from thousands of years ago. The Egyptians, when they died, they had to die with a virtuous heart. So when they died, their heart went to a place or to a god of some description, and it was placed on a scale. And then you had your heart on one side and you had a feather on the other. And if your heart was heavier than the feather, it got devoured by a combination of a crocodile, a lion, and a hippopotamus. but because you didn't lead a virtuous life. But if it was lighter than a feather, you went into a place of, like going to heaven, so to speak. You see.
Mm-hmm.
So it just, in those days, even then you had to lead a virtuous life. So that made an impact, on the local population, that they had to, look after each other, collaborate, obey the laws and all that sort of thing. So it's really interesting. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Well, let me ask you, Gerry, when talking about fear, fear a little bit earlier, do you have any fears, or like in what you're doing, or, and then if you do, like, how do you break through your fears?
What I do is understand the science. So if you understand, because the world comes through our five senses, and it comes into our mind, and within microseconds, our world is processed by our brain, and it's either a threat, or it's comfortable, or whatever. Okay, and because the neurochemicals go down into our gut. You ever had a gut feeling? Okay, so yeah, so there's a connection between your brain and your gut, and that's gut instinct. And the other part is heartfelt. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why I've engaged Janet Clark, my coach, because her sales conversations are what's called a heart flow conversation, and so we, are on the same wavelength, and that's how we interact with the world. So, overcoming fear is about understanding the science, and if you can get in touch with your intuition and listen to it, listen to your gut, listen to your heart, listen to your mind. There's no reason, and if you just analyze it, okay, where's that gut feeling come from? My intuition. Is my fear justified? I think, it's only my amygdala. So what I need to do is just move it to the front, analyze it. Is it an issue? Analyze the issue, create it into an objective, and then come up with a little plan, maybe a 5-step plan to move on from it. And that's how I overcome my fear.
Oh, I love that. So you take a practical approach to it.
Yes.
Yeah. You almost have to, right? Because there's a couple things. It's like I have a fear and I just go through it because I realize I need to do it. Or, this fear like overcomes and it just like takes over my entire life, which is how I used to be. By me going through that year of fears, it really helped to learn how to recognize fear quickly and to recognize that it's fear. And what do they say? Something like 95% of fear, like 95% of the fear that we experience doesn't even happen. So what if I went out there and I said, you know what, this is the 95%, just always thought of everything as being the 95% that's never going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of how I do it. I look at fears like, for example, I mean, I've had a lot of fears, and most of them were just internal things, not anything that anybody could see. It was all like mental, emotional types of fears, through my years. And one fear that I used to have was actually, people have fear of videos, right? Because of fear of judgment is a big one. Well, I had fears of just sending an email to somebody, because what if they got angry, or what if they didn't like what I said? And so then I would make sure that my emails would never really be me. They were never me, because I was too scared to be me. Because if I was me, somebody wouldn't like me. I had that people pleaser syndrome. And so learning, like, my new phrase that I use is, if I do or say whatever it is I'm going to do or say, or I want to do or say, will it affect me a week from now? And if the answer is no, I say, will it affect me a day from now? If the answer is no, will it affect me an hour from now? If the answer is no, then I go ahead and do it. But always thinking of the other person. Will it affect them in a week from now, in a day from now, in an hour from now? Will they learn from it? And if they will learn from it, then I have to do it, because that's the only way we learn and grow, is by people by different perspectives, or that's how I've learned. I've learned so much. Oh my gosh, I've had people say things to me in person that would have really, really hurt me a couple of years ago, but now they say them, and it doesn't hurt me. What it does is it helps me grow and learn. So it's just like an amazing journey. But how can people get in touch with you if they want to find out a little bit more about your program or what you're doing?
Well, they can get me through my LinkedIn profile, which would be great. Okay. That's probably the best place to get in touch with me. I have my Facebook page, which is called Titanframeworks, because I have plug and play frameworks, that I can put in and take out, which is great. So I think that would be the easiest way to get in contact with me. But just one thing I'd like to leave with you, Linda. There's a book called Thick Face, Black Heart.
Thick
Face, F-A-C-E.
Okay.
Thick Face, Black Heart.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think you'll get a lot of insight into, it just give you another insight. I'll just leave it at that because we're right at the end, but I thought I'd just give you that as a parting gift.
Nice teaser.
Otherwise we're going to talk for another hour.
Yeah, that's easy for me to do, and I do have another appointment, but I just want to thank you so much for your time. I always love watching what you're doing and what you're working on, and you're just such an amazing soul, and thank you for being you on this planet and helping to raise the vibration and make this such a better place.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Fantastic.
So Titanframeworks, and then Thick Face, Black Heart.
Yeah.
Okay, that is very curious. I cannot wait to go check it out.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Gerry. You have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.